So, a budget is an art of percentages. And please note that there's no hard and fast rules about how much to spend and where to spend it. It's absolutely up to you. That said, I've given you a breakdown in your workbook of where you can expect to spend your budget and a rough breakdown in percentages of what that spending will fall into. When working with my clients, I like to start with a ballpark of guest list number and a total budget to help guide a per head spend. Once you've drafted a guest list and know the total budget you have to play with, you can work out whether it's more important to have a lot of people there and have a simple event or fewer people so you can spend more on their entertainment. There's absolutely no right answer here. It's up to you and what matters to you as a couple. And that's the thing. It's what matters to you as a couple. Now, guest lists can be a massive source of stress because families are often keen to have a say, especially if they're contributing money. Your parents might feel they've got favors to return for being invited to other people's children's weddings. So there may be an expectation that you invite some of their friends. Or you might have a big family with lots of cousins. And, at what point do you draw the line? So, the best way to handle guest lists is to sit down with your parents or any other close relatives who might have an opinion and suss out their expectations right from the start before you actually make that first draft list. This is a good time also to have a talk about who's going to contribute. And I've got some tips for you in the next video. But it's also a good idea to discuss your boundaries as a couple before you have these conversations. If you're planning an intimate affair with close friends and family, you may not want casual acquaintances or people that you barely know there. One of my guidelines for who makes it onto the guest list is if you would buy them dinner in the next year, then put them on the list. But if you wouldn't buy them dinner, then maybe they need to just come to your engagement party, but not the wedding. Another massive sticking topic is the plus one. So, my rule around plus ones is if you've met them, absolutely invite them. But if they're a new partner and you don't know them, then it's okay to leave them off the list. It really comes back to your budget and whether you can afford to spend hundreds of dollars on entertaining, a stranger. This is a space where you're probably going to ruffle a few feathers. And if people get offended, you have to take a strong stand and stay in your lane. And maybe just say, hey, at the end of the day, it all comes down to budget. And that normally shuts people up. But don't avoid those tricky conversations. If your cousin's calling to ask why he hasn't got a plus one, you need to let him know that he can't, that you can't actually afford for his new partner to come because you don't want him showing up pissed off, on the day and spoiling the vibe. Another thing to consider, do you actually want those people in your photos? Another thing to consider is children. Children are a beautiful part of your family, a family's love story. But think about whether you want their parents celebrating with you or preoccupied with their kids. As young children are going to be a distraction at ceremonies and speeches, it's just not in their nature to sit still for more than 5 minutes. So, if you'd like your friends and family to be able to bring kids, consider organising childcare at the wedding. So people can have their children with them, but not have them take over. The best way to set clear boundaries around who's invited is by making this really clear in your invites. In your workbook, you'll find some suggested wording for your invites in crossing off those tricky conversations around children and plus ones. As you prepare your guest list, also consider how you feel about your guests giving you gifts or maybe money. Traditionally, people give gifts or money at a wedding to help a young couple get started out in their new home and their new lives together. But as people are tending to get married older, you may already have a home and all the possessions that you need. You may both be working and in well-paid jobs and not need any money. You may not want gifts. So think about what it is you'd like and what you feel comfortable with receiving. Gift giving traditions vary from culture to culture. Gifting money is a beautiful part of many wedding traditions. But in families with British heritage, asking for money can feel a bit uncomfortable. However, there's been a recent shift towards it being more acceptable. And one way you can get around any discomfort is to say exactly what you'll be using the money for. For example, we're going to go on our honeymoon to some tropical island. So if you'd like to contribute to our honeymoon fund, that would be amazing. If guests will be giving you cash at your wedding, please make sure you've organised somewhere for people to leave that, like a card drop. And also make sure someone's in charge of picking it up, because you don't want cash lying around. It's just too much of an unnecessary temptation. A good place to do that is kind of in between cocktail dinner and dancing. Regardless of what you decide about gifts, you need to be really clear with your guests about whether you expect something from them right from the get-go. Bear in mind that some people will want to give you gifts whether you say, and that some people like to have a gift registry to refer to, and others will ignore it completely. But any giving guidance you can give your guests will give them that sort of reassurance and peace of mind, so they know what they're doing is the right, correct thing for you. Okay, that's all you really need to know about guest lists. Setting your budget starts with your guest list, because wedding budgets are calculated on a per head basis. Make sure that you have the conversation with your families about guests before you do your major guest list, so you understand everyone's expectation. And consider how wide you want to cast your net, and whether you're inviting distant family members, plus ones, and children. And have a think about gifts, because people will ask you the question, and it's good to be clear right from the start. Before you move on to the second section of this module, please have those key conversations with your family about who they'd like to have invited and included on that guest list. And then go ahead and make your first draft of your guest list. You'll find a link to a guest list template in your workbook. This is going to help you. You can start populating that. Once you've decided who you're going to invite, you need to collect a few pieces of key information for your guests. And more on this on the invite lesson. Getting this information out of your guests can feel like herding cats. So you might need to get your best school teacher hat on and be a bit demanding, because you need this information for your suppliers to do their job and for you to finalize your overall budget. So do your guest list, and I'll see you in the next video, where we'll look at who might contribute to your budget.